Tommy Oldham wakes up aboard Hazana, a ship single-handedly designed by her lover. She's covered in bruises and appears to be confused at first. Soon she realizes that her lover, Richard, is missing after they had encountered a terrible storm. She struggles back to the top deck, calling Richard, but there is no sign of Richard. Realizing that Richard might be dead, she breaks down, crying. We are then taken to 5 months earlier, where Tommy arrives in Tahiti. She goes to verify her ID and asks for a job that would pay enough to take her to her next destination. When asked where her destination is, Tommy says she doesn't know. Tommy is a traveler looking to sail around the world. She soon starts working with a girl named Deb, cleaning and scrubbing boats. Deb wants to know why Tommy chose to come to Tahiti when she had other options, and Tommy simply tells her that she's only going to return home once she has seen the world. One evening, while Tommy and Deb are hard at work, Richard Sharp, a British sailor, arrives on board his boat, the Myaluga. He asks the girls for help, during which pleasantries and introductions are exchanged. After helping him out, Richard tells Tommy he hopes to see her around as she leaves with Deb. One evening, Tommy and Richard meet again by chance. Richard then asks if she likes fish, and Tommy reveals that she's vegetarian. Seeing he has made an awful fail at asking her out, he confesses he actually wanted to ask her out for dinner, and Tommy agrees, as long as their meal would be vegetarian. That night, at dinner, Richard tells Tommy how he has traveled to many places. When Tommy asks him why he does it, he starts to talk about all the beautiful feelings he cannot explain. But despite having such solitude, Richard reveals to her the downside of spending too much time at sea. He claims one may suffer sickness or even hallucinations. He is also able to tell that Tommy is a sailor like him. However, Tommy claims that she sails a lot, yet she won't consider herself a sailor. Richard then offers to let her sail his boat the next day. The next day, Tommy proves just how talented she is at sailing. Despite her inexperience, the duo soon starts having even more fun adventures together. One day, Tommy takes him to a waterfall, where she hops into the water, hoping for Richard to find her. He quickly jumps in after her, and eventually finds her crouched underwater. As they both swim back up, Richard is shocked to see Tommy's wild side. Sparks fly, and their feelings are made clear to each other. Later, they hang out at the beach, sharing a kiss to commemorate that very moment. Back to the present, Tommy tries to contact help via radio, but unfortunately for her, there's no signal. She returns to the top deck, distraught. As she lies there in sadness, she realizes that the boat is missing its lifeboat and tries searching for it. She tries to start the boat, but she is unable to, being that the sails have been destroyed. She then detaches them, but falls into the water in the process. After struggling to find her way around the sail, she returns to her drifting boat and begins patching up the leaks by using duct tape. She then finds a large pipe and puts together a mechanism for draining the water out of the lower deck. With even more struggles, she finally puts up the sails all by herself. We are then taken to the past, at the start of their journey, when Richard gives her a dress. Back to the present. While looking through her binoculars, she notices the lifeboat and Richard holding onto it. She quickly jumps into the water and swims up to rescue Richard, who has somehow managed to stay alive. She returns to the boat with Richard, calming him down and assuring him that everything will be all right. However, Richard had sustained a nasty wound to his right shin. Back in the past, Richard and Tommy are out on a date as usual when Richard gives her a flower of love to indicate his affection for her. He also hints to her that wearing it on the left means that she's off the market and in a relationship, so she wears it on her left. Later that evening, while having dinner together, Tommy finds out that Richard had started sailing when she was only 16. She then tells Richard all about her childhood and how her mother, who had her at an early age, influenced her life. She invites Richard to dance with her, during which Richard offers her to sail the world with him. Back to the present, Tommy dresses up Richard's wounds with a makeshift cast. Afterwards, she tries to calm him down as he is in a lot of pain. Tommy also tries to elevate his head by putting a pillow under him, but that's when she realizes that he has also sustained some fractures in his ribs. With extreme care, she helps him lay on top of the pillow, caressing and kissing him to ease his pain. Back in the past, during their next meeting, they plan to sail to Japan together. So while shopping for groceries to prepare for the trip, the couple runs into Peter and Christine Crompton, whom Richard knows very well. The elderly couple invites them for coffee, and they agree to join them. Once seated at the cafe, Peter and Christine give Richard a tempting offer of $10,000 and a return first-class ticket back to Tahiti to sail Hazana, their luxury Trentella 44 yacht, to San Diego, California. Richard immediately accepts the offer, but under the condition that they let Tommy come along with him and also give her a return ticket, to which Christine agrees. Back to the present, and after spending 2 days adrift, Tommy then does some calculations, realizing that their boat has drifted way too far from their main course and nowhere close to hope for rescue. She quickly loses hope, claiming they will meet their demise here on the sea, as there are no flight passes or shipping lanes on the path they are on. But Richard assures her that everything will be fine. Back in the past, Richard approaches a distressed-looking Tommy, who explains to him that she doesn't want to feel like she's just following him around on his adventures. She also makes it known that it's a fantastic opportunity, but she doesn't wish to return to San Diego, where she left her family years ago. Richard then tells her that he will decline the offer, but Tommy refuses. Richard then reveals to her that he had sailed half the world to find her and would much rather decline the offer than lose her. She then asks to see the Hazana. Back to the present, Tommy is still in her calculations when Richard tells her that they can reach San Diego in 25 days. However, with the headwinds, it would take months. Tommy then suggests that they head to Hawaii, but Richard warns her that if she misses Hawaii, then there will be nothing else along the way until Japan. After both agreeing to head to Hawaii, Tommy sets their course for the place. Back in the past, Tommy and Richard spent more time with Peter and Christine in the proposed yacht. The elderly couple informs them that they're rushing back to London to see Christine's sick father. As they have run out of drinks, Peter and Christine offer to get some more, leaving Tommy and Richard to check out the yacht. When Richard tells her that they can make enough for a year-long trip, Tommy finally agrees to go with Richard on the trip, just before Richard could decline the offer. Later, Tommy writes a letter to her mother to inform her of her supposed arrival with her new boyfriend. Back to the present, Tommy finally gets the water system going and starts rummaging around for what she can find. Meanwhile, the couple sets off for their journey. Back to the present, Tommy scavenges for food and water that has yet to be destroyed by the water that seeped into the ship. She offers Richard some water and also takes a sip. She then takes out peanut butter for them to share as food. Back in the past, on the first evening of their trip, they witness a beautiful red sunset. The duo makes jokes about its color, but unknown to them, it is just the beginning of the danger that is about to hit them. After spending 5 days adrift, Tommy recalculates and realizes that she's going off course again. She decides to take a dive into the water to catch what the issue is when she realizes that a piece of the sail is stuck to the boat. She tries to get it off at first but fails. Then, after many attempts, she finally manages to get it off. 5 days later, she scavenged for more food, which was barely enough. She also finds some face cream, which she applies to her face and then to Richard's for relief. She then redresses Richard's wounds and goes to get water when she realizes that they're all out of water. She then returns to tell Richard that they're also running out of food. Richard suggests that she fish for food, but Tommy makes a fuss about being a vegetarian and not being able to hurt anything. However, Richard expresses how he feels like he's dead weight with his broken ribs and shattered legs, reminding her that she has no other means of survival. After rethinking, Tommy decides to give fishing a try. Sadly, she fails on her first attempt. Richard then tells her to relax and remember that the worst thing that could happen is that she dies of hunger. She then tries several times again but fails. Afterwards, she returns to the boat crying to Richard that she can't do it. Soon after, while Tommy is meditating, it suddenly starts to rain. Tommy is filled with joy as she has almost lost hope about drinking good water. 18 days pass, and Tommy manages to find a wine at the bottom deck. She quickly takes it to Richard, and they both take sips to get back in touch with their humanity. A few more days pass, and Tommy is happily playing the guitar when Richard tells her that he wishes she had never met him so that she wouldn't be in this situation. However, Tommy claims that if she had never met him, she wouldn't have memories to cherish, so she doesn't mind. Back in the past, Richard is seen playing the same guitar one night when Tommy asks him about his mother. Richard then reveals to her that his mother had died when he was young. He also wonders how she would feel seeing him deliberately put himself in such dangerous situations. When Tommy asks to know more, Richard gives a reply that makes Tommy realize that Richard wants to spend his entire life with her. Just then, Richard proposes and Tommy joyfully accepts. However, the engagement is done with a handcrafted ring, and he promises to buy her a real one once they get to land. But Tommy is overwhelmed and doesn't really mind. Back to the ongoing tragedy. It's been 29 days adrift. That night, Tommy has a hallucination of a large cargo ship heading towards them. She fires a flare several times, but the ship sails right past them and suddenly vanishes, making Tommy realize that she was only hallucinating. A few days later, after giving Richard some water, Tommy tells him to hold on for her as they only have about 690 miles left to reach their destination. Back in the past, we see where Tommy and Richard receive news about an incoming cyclone called Hurricane Raymond, but Richard tells her that if they move at the same pace, then they're likely to avoid the storm. A few hours later, the storm catches up to them, and they start to struggle to save themselves. Back to the present, Tommy and Richard watch the same red sunset again. Tommy then realizes that it is a warning that something might be coming. She then prepares a makeshift shelter to help them survive the incoming storm, but it turns out to be a minor blizzard. While lying beside Richard, she tells him how she would lock herself in the bathroom and pretend she was anywhere in the world whenever her parents were having their squabble with their relatives. She then asks Richard to pretend with her that they're wherever they want to be at the moment. Back to the past, the storm continues to toss their boat around. They both lower the sails to prevent the boat from capsizing. While helping Richard, Tommy almost falls off the boat as she is hit by the powerful waves, but she gets saved by Richard. Tommy then finds an emergency locator transmitter with which she tries to report their location. But Richard tells her to go down to the bottom deck when he senses that the boat might tip over. However, Tommy refuses to leave him behind. Richard then manages to convince her to head down, saying he doesn't want to lose her. Seconds after Tommy starts to head down, the yacht gets hit by a towering wave that repeatedly flips them, throwing Tommy around the bottom deck as she sustains a head wound. Richard, on the other hand, is tossed overboard after being knocked unconscious, causing his safety harness to break. As the yacht continues to flip over and over, Richard slowly sinks into the bottom of the ocean. Back to the present, Tommy wakes up to Richard's voice calling to her for help. She then mutters that she's finally ready to let him go, but soon wakes up to the shocking truth. Richard was never with her to begin with. After the incident, Richard sank to the bottom of the ocean, but Tommy hit rock bottom with her hallucinations, probably due to her severe head wound, and imagined Richard had been with her the whole time. She then recalls her first night with Richard, when he explained about hallucinations on the sea. She also realizes that in all that time spent in tragedy, she was all alone. However, that illusion gave her the willpower to survive. Hunger-stricken, she dives back into the water to hunt for fish. Thankfully, she succeeds this time, but doesn't have time to cook the fish, so she eats it raw. After 41 days adrift, as she sits staring at the sky, she sees a land bird on the yacht. Using her binoculars, she realizes that she is close to land. Filled with joy, she quickly takes her flare and attracts an incoming ship that stops to her rescue. They lower some food and supplies for her and tow her to shore. Days later, after recovering, she returns to Tahiti to visit Richard's boat. Seeing all their pictures takes her down a trip to memory lane, and she can't help but cry as she misses Richard so much. She then heads to the beach, where they share their first kiss. Reaching its shore, she places her engagement ring around the dead flower he had given her months ago and lets it go in the water to pay her last respects to Richard. In the post-credits scene, It is revealed that the story is based on an actual life event. The real Richard Sharp was swept overboard, and his body was never found. Tommy Oldham had indeed survived the ordeal alone for a total of 41 days before rescue found her. But despite all that, Tommy continues to sail the seas as a profound sailor. Articles, pictures, and a video of the actual couple are also shown. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2018 survival drama film, Adrift, produced and directed by Baltazar Kormaker, and written by David Branson Smith, Aaron Candell, and Jordan Candell. The film stars Shailene Woodley and Sam Claflin and is based on the 2002 book Red Sky in Mourning by Tommy Oldham Ashcraft, a true story set during the events of Hurricane Raymond in 1983. I think we can all agree that Tommy was a powerful woman. Who else felt like all this could have been averted if Richard had just declined the offer? Well, let us know in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. Until next time.